Hey, welcome to today's show. Today, I have a fellow 10th grouper with me. I think you might be my first 10th grouper, our first 10th grouper. Another brother. We've had some SF brothers on the show, but I think you're probably the first 10th group brother. From the originals that's on the show. So, Jeff Bosley, man, great to have you this morning, and appreciate you taking some time.
Oh God, it's good to be here. It's good to the 10th grouper. I love the sound of that.
Yeah, I know.
I don't hear it often where I live ananymore, so it gives the ego a little bit of a kick.
It does. I'll never get tired of just saying the originals.
Right? Yeah. Were you 10th the entire time?
Yeah.
That's
well,
awesome.
I mean, as much I'm an O, so
yeah.
Was an O. So as much as I was allowed to be, I was a 10th grouper. So my team time, company command time, what little staff time, before they pulled me out.
Majority rules. Where have you spent the majority of your time?
Yeah.
Well, I got to jump in because y'all are dropping the lingo again. And I think I know the story behind this one, but the originals, can you give me that quick synopsis there, Dad?
Yeah. Well,
I think I know what that comes from.
10th group was the first group, 1952, June 6th. Was it June 6th? 1950.
We're gonna get crucified by some brothers on that one.
Colonel. Yeah, I know. Colonel Aaron Banks, former OSS guy in World War II, Jedburgh guy, was our first commander in Bad Tolz, Germany in 1952. Stood the group up. No. Stood it up in the U.S. at Bragg, and then they moved part of the group forward to Bad Tolz because of we were afraid of the Soviet horde.
Yeah.
Well,
they still, even now when you're in the schoolhouse, they still have this weird Eastern Bloc mentality of 10th group, you're going to speak Russian. I mean, and they assign this AOR that really doesn't exist, like the Iron Curtain and all this crap. That stuff doesn't really exist anymore, but they're still Russian, except you're going French, and then you're going to Iraq and Afghanistan. So
they started with 10th group because classic American fashion had to confuse them, right?
Exactly. Yeah. We couldn't be first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They're 10 makes it sound like there's 9 previous ones. It's psyop.
They find 10th group, and then it's where the rest of them. Oh yeah.
Yeah, they're oh God, we only know of one. That means there's 9 other bastards out there somewhere.
It's funny you say that language thing. I've forgotten about that. But when I was first a team leader, and we moved out here from Devon's, and that was the big study, was what other languages. We shouldn't be speaking these other languages. We shouldn't be speaking this. And they did a whole, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of dollars Army Special Ops spent on the language study.
Yeah.
And here we are, 30 years later, still doing the same damn language.
Yeah. And sometimes that's good to say that it's stuck in, and sometimes it's wow, we really can't change our ways.
Yeah, way to move forward.
One of my favorite things about the language school that I know you'll completely value is there was a guy, for the life of me, I can't remember his first name, but he was straight up from Mexico. So he was Mexican, straight up, had the thick accent, the whole 9 yards. I think he was PsyOps or civil affairs, but they go to our language school too every once in a while. And no, he was in SF. And this is when I don't know how it is now, but we had to learn to read, write, and spell. You couldn't just muscle through speaking okay, so you had to be competent in all 3 of those, which depending on your headspace, some people can't wrap their mind around 1 or 2 of those. They can read it, but they can't speak it. And this poor bastard, his accent, you would think, because they're both a Latin-based language, you would think he would have embraced it, but he couldn't speak it because they don't judge you on your accent per se, but they judge you on your ability to deliver. And he was so to the core, Mexican, straight up accent Mexican from Mexico. It was just killing him. And he's I'm not going to become a green. This is before the day, there was, I don't know about you, I think language was after you got your hat, right?
Yeah, language was after I got the
For us, this was still, you might not become a Green Beret if you don't pass language school, and so this guy's I'm not going to become a Green Beret because of a language I'm not going to end up using. He's just sweating to death. I had taken 4 years out French in high school and college, so language school for me was fun. I would say stuff wrong just to piss her off, and it showed her I knew what I was doing.
You were that guy.
I was like that. Yeah, I was kind of a jerk, but at the end, he finally muscled through it. He got French, and he got assigned to third group, which is basically South America, where they need to speak Spanish. He's like, God damn it, this poor guy.
Well, good thing he learned French, right?
Exactly, yeah, and he's never spoke a day of it, I'm sure. Like, he's probably the go-to guy on his team now because of where he's assigned.
Oh yeah. Well, I had a guy in the Q course who was Ukrainian descent, spoke fluid Ukrainian, and yeah, they sent him to French.
Of course, like
Yeah.
what an asset. You and I both know, like at the end of it, only because of my French in high school and college, I could actually have a pseudo decent conversation. You and I both know at the end of 4 months, you're going to like learn to say, how do you say that in English? Where's the toilet and where's your interpreter? So it blows my mind the assets they don't take advantage of,
Whatever. You forgot the key phrase. Yes, you have no piva.
Yeah.
Another beer, please. That's the only beer, please.
Yeah. Well, I was the team mom, so I was the guy that had to watch them had fun and then give them stitches after their fun,
Well, hey, I want to shift gears just because, I've been following you and chatting with you off and on for several months now. So I got to know Reacher. So, and I'm sitting here thinking, well, why Reacher? Reacher's this little squatty Tom Cruise guy. Why not Terminator? Why not John Wick? I mean, not that Keanu Reeves is a big dude either, but But why Reacher, man? What's good?
Okay, well, the little disclaimer is honestly to my right here. There's actually a stack of non-disclosures, and it feels like it was more paperwork there than it was to get my clearance in group, my security clearance in group. It was just like only in Hollywood. But the short version is the movies you're referencing with Tom Cruise, the Jack Reacher movies. There's 2 of them, and unless you know the books, you just assume they're just another Tom Cruise movie, like you're saying, like whatever, Tom Cruise. But they're actually based on like a 25 series book, and the character in it is written intimately detailed to be a giant. Like it says 6'5", 260, blue eyes, military background. I mean, I'm not patting myself on the back, but it's me. It is me. Yeah. And Cruise, I mean, to his credit, and I get the business side of the game, he bought the rights and he's like, I want to do what I want to do. He had his own sandbox and wanted to play with his own toys.
You can always tilt the cameras up, right?
Oh, you would think. But one of the ones, I can't remember if it's the first one or the second one, he has a bar fight, and you would assume they would tilt the cameras or hire little people or whatever to portray that. They straight up didn't. He walks out of the bar with these 4 guys, and they're like towering over him. I'm like, you guys aren't even trying to trick us. Of course, he kicks their ass, and so that's why. Is basically he got the rights to it. The book fans lost their mind. Like loyalty of fans of, I don't care if it's Twilight to comic books. Like book source fans are insane, and in a good way. And they lost their mind. They're like, Tom Cruise doesn't work. I respect him in case he ever finds me. And I always call him, there's a Scientology sniper somewhere, I'm sure. If I piss him off, I'll just hear a little snap from a distance.
The glass break.
Yeah, exactly. He bought the rights, and after 2 movies, the rights got canceled. And there was a story in the BBC some fan sent me, and then I just went apeshit on it because they wanted an unknown actor. And in Hollywood, that's so rare because they want guaranteed income. That's why The Rock is in everything, basically. And so I just went crazy on it. I'd read the book since. My go-to story that's fact is I was in Iraq using one of the honey buckets. And somebody literally left a Jack Reacher book in the stall. And I was like, I got plenty of time to go number 2. So I started reading it. And this is when I was still serving. And I was like, God, this is me. And I read it, and I was addicted, and I thought that was that. And I was like, at this point, almost 10 years ago. So when the BBC article came out that they're looking for a new actor, Tom Cruise is an in, I was like, game on. And that's, I call it Hollywood psyops. I went on a psyops pamphlet leafing campaign. And as you've seen, and I'm probably highly annoyed by I am, 2 years of just Jeff Bosley for Jack Reacher, Jeff Bosley for Jack Reacher. And,
T-shirts too.
Yeah. Thanks to
awesome.
America Supply Co. That was brilliant on their part. And yeah, so as a result, because of the PsyOps campaign, it's I've met with the author. I've spent a couple times with him in DC. There was a fan film, the stuff I can't say with the non-disclosure. But a friend of mine with a similarly name got an audition, and so that's to be an unknown with Amazon for a TV series now. That's unheard of, so, and then that's where that's at.
Oh, that's awesome.
Well, yeah. So Jack Reacher will have to be. I want him to like change the backstory and have him be, because he's an MP. Again, any MPs listening? Yeah, your face just said it all.
Even I know that.
Yeah. Again, to my MP brothers and sisters out there, I'm not knocking it.
Yeah,
but
I mean, they've got. We need them to do stuff.
I agree. Yeah, trust me, I got to be really diplomatic. The author, he's from Britain. He does well, but you can also see some losses. But his audience isn't us. His audience is generic, and so they don't know better. And he picked MP, and he made this fictional special unit. And so I want to argue it. He was, two MOSs, like he was former SF and then went MP. Because he used MP to argue his ability to investigate. I couldn't. I don't know about you. I could do the eye scanner, but I can't. I can do fingerprints and all that crap. So that's the backstory. I want to change it. I just want to take all the rights away from him, basically.
Well, Jeff, what that makes me think of right away is something that I know I've talked with you about before, Dad, and older brother Braden about this. When you watch a lot of these military movies, and there's so many things that are just so far off that even I can, military brat, military adjacent, I can look at it and be like, that makes no freaking sense.
Yeah.
But I always joke about, it's like, okay, how much would it cost to bring in some vet, some SF guy to come in and just pay, minimum wage, get out there and just say, oh yeah, that's not how you hold a gun, or just any little tiny things like that. And have you been able to work on that a little bit?
Yeah,
we making progress?
Yes, there's like two dichotomies in that. In if they hire me, like you got to play the good. You got to learn your audience, and not like if you're known as the military guy, you'll kind of get pigeonholed as the consultant, and then they get horse blinders. Like this is just in my case specifically, they can risk getting horse blinders and go, this guy has no acting skills. He's always going to be the consultant guy, gun guy, no whatever. And I that's a career great. I have a lot of friends that do it. So when I get hired as an actor, I have to very cleverly, like, again, I always use the word psyops. I got to psyops my way into there and go, I happen to Green Beret. And then I could try to like find ways, but other times I'll do that and I will see zero response. And I got to just straight up grit and eat it. Like what I'll end up doing, this is really childish, is I'll be like, that's right, whatever you say. And then when they call action, I'll do it my way. And then odds are they won't redo it because they're not paying attention. Or I can't remember the name of the gun. This was a perfect example.
Because it'll come out better probably.
And it was, but no, like will know. And, and like but the catch-22 is their thought process is who's the audience. Like it's like going to a Fast and Furious movie, and it's not like it's full of car specialists. Like the original, not the ones where now cars are in space flying, but like the original one, it's not like they have car specialists. So like they're just trying to turn their brain off and be entertained. Mm-hmm. But with that very diplomatic answer being said, some shit is horrible right now. Like it is just, how hard is it to I understood Rambo shooting a 60 from his hip in like the 80s because there was nobody knew any better. There was no social media. All due respect to Mr. Stallone, the fact he's on Expendables 10 and still shooting from the hip when all of these amazing movies with incredible accuracy are being made, it's like, can we just teach him to use his sights? Just fuck, I'm with you, and it's just my metaphor at the end of the day is like, if any of us watch a doctor movie, a TV show with doctors, we know if that dumbass grabs it by the scalpel blade, he's wrong. I mean, I'm a Delta, but like none of us have to be MDs to know that that's wrong. Mm-hmm. Why can't we do that with guns? And especially in this day and age, guns really need some respectful PR, That's my long answer. I'm really passionate on that topic. You knocked
it out of the park.
You poked the bear.
Well, no, it's great because, what it makes me think of is when you hear about various actors at certain levels, I guess they get, and you hear interviews and it's like, well, I improv that whole scene, and I'm sure they didn't truthfully improv it, but they also give them some lanes in the road to kind of follow and play the character and go this direction.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's the cool thing. Like on my positive anecdotes, I'll name names. On my negative ones, I'll keep the source anonymous. But I think like a great example is like the John Wick movies. Now I say that hesitantly because we all know mag flips and all that. It's pure choreographed, awesome, just dumb entertainment. Yes. But because that guy, like I'm very fortunate, I've trained where Keanu shoots, you know, at that Terran Tactical, and he is so well trained. It's almost like for us, like you get that baseline of CQB or whatever. So when things go to shit, you can improv, and you have at least a baseline to deviate from. So like Keanu Reeves, and once he's on like John Wick 10, they probably won't even need choreographed stuff. They're like, hey, here's a gun, go, because he's so well trained. Whereas some of these things, they don't know, they don't have a baseline. So when they improv, they're improving what, you know, we did in the sandbox as 3-year-olds playing G.I. Joe. And then it obviously looks that way. And a perfect example, this will be the negative one, on a major movie. Another Green Beret, actually, he's probably your generation or maybe like right between you and I. And he is a consultant stunt guy in LA. He's actually the guy that got me into LA initially. He went to the director and said, hey, super rich, famous, amazing A-list celebrity here is doing this wrong. And super rich A-list celebrity director said, he does what he wants. And Green Beret guy goes, do I want to eat with this paycheck or do I want to be right? It's not like they're asking him to disrespect the flag or wear his uniform blatantly wrong, but he's like, this D-bag wants to look like a moron, thumbs up. You know, he's like, I needed a paycheck, you know, and God forbid, like they ever test that metal, you know, like they're like, all right, Jeff, you're playing Green Beret in this movie and you got to wear your hat like a baker. I'm like, let me look at that. I got chills just thinking about it. I'm like, what would I do? You know,
well,
something online.
Didn't you play a SEAL some too in that TV show?
I played a SEAL a lot. I played a SEAL more than a Green Beret. Yeah, trust me. Yeah, I made sure I was super pretty. My hair was good. I worked on my tan and. The one time I played a Green Beret was actually with this Green Beret consultant buddy I kind of referenced. We were the first two to die in the movie, like straight up in the opening. I go running across the blind alley. Again, you only know if you know, so a lot of audience didn't get this, but yeah. We had a firefight. I go running across this blind alley with my back to an uncovered location where the fire was originally coming from, looking at nothing, and I get shot in the back, of course. And I'm down, so we're in the middle of a firefight. He goes, I'm coming! He's supposed to. It's not like he was winging it. But he comes running into the middle of open fire, you know, that we have no security set. He gets plugged. I'm like, this movie is called Special Operations. And we got the two real Green Berets stacking their own bodies in an alleyway, you know? So I was like, apparently I can't play a Green Beret or I will die.
You know, well, I was gonna say, because that reminds me of what the pet peeve that I think is the easiest one, you know, aside from holding the gun funny or something like that, is just the clearing the corners when you're entering a building. The amount of times you are watching a movie and there's this guy who's, you know, 20 years special forces, and he forgets to look behind him when he opens a door. Like, oh my gosh, Dad, you taught me that one. Like,
it's such an insult. And I try to like also say, like, I was working on this one movie and this guy, he was new to, he was a vet transitioning in, and he was very much so like, that's wrong. And I was trying to like help him find that sweet spot of, hey, we're making an entertaining thing, not a documentary. And it was kind of like that weird sweet spot of like trying to find accuracy versus like, you're making this miserable documentary. And I tried to argue my one where me and another Green Beret got killed right in the opening. I'm like, people would critique, like, it's fun. I love doing this crap. Like, people will go to YouTube and find this scene and like, you think you're a real Green Beret? You died. I'm like, one, I didn't write the script. Two, I'm wearing no plates. I have a hat on and I have no sleeves. Like, yeah, that's cool. You'll see some 80s pictures of us Green Berets doing that. But I was like, you should have stopped paying attention for accuracy when I had baby oil on my tattoos on my tank top. Like, we obviously weren't working on tactics that day.
Yeah, well,
take it down a notch.
The sleeveless days ended real quick as soon as our major saw a picture. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
The phone cameras killed all the, I mean, I quite literally almost lost my career because of a mustache.
Oh, I don't doubt it.
Having my picture taken with General Downey, and I had a mustache on. And gosh, it wasn't. It was Jeff Lambert was the group commander, and called me into his office and told me that he was this close to firing me and taking away my special forces tab.
It got to be like, Daddy, how'd you lose your career? This.
Yeah. exactly. A deployment mustache. I was deployed.
Yeah, I remember we got to the point where we had to have orders for relaxed, grooming standards, in our little team house, and it was just like, really, this is just, and the running joke is like, isn't that why we joined special forces, for pockets and beards,
That's right.
I
Put
didn't
your
sign up
hands in
for
our
hearts and
pockets.
minds.
I want to ask, so you've done a lot of little independent things,
Yeah.
which I kind of look at it, and I don't know if you look at yourself this way, as an entrepreneur, and your product is you.
Yeah.
So when you have a product that's you, or a product in a business,
Mm-hmm.
what's your audience?
I love
or your niche to keep it in the business.
Yeah. And I love the way you think, applied it that way, because I actually do it the same way. And I don't mean to be like this passively pompous way, but I always vehemently, if I'm saying that right, passionately argue that, yeah, Hollywood and acting or whatever it may be, it's inherently a very accidentally superficial aesthetic business. But at the end of the day, it's still, I liken it. Like if I was 18 years old, I'd probably get all caught up in the artsy fartsiness and in being offended left and right. But at the end of the day, it is a business. There is a product. And I argue, I use the term loosely, but fans, they are literally your customers. And if people don't get that, they're paying, I mean, let's not talk COVID, but they're paying for a ticket to watch you do something. It's the same as paying for a consulting slot in a school, or literally going to Home Depot and buying a bolt. There's a product and it's a customer and a seller. And so I liken that same way to this, and I use that same mentality, just like a business. I've never owned a business, but I use that kind of malicious, I don't want to say black and white, but I try to keep it simple with that black and white business mentality that some of the podcasts I listen to your guys is where it is that if you don't go into it that way, you'll get lost in the sauce of the stuff you can't control. Mm-hmm. And using your indie film comparison is like, I can't remember who it was. It was a mom and pop show you guys had. And I liken that to the indie film thing.
Yeah.
It's more rewarding as the business because you have more say. Like if you want to open up a mom and pop burger joint versus a franchise McDonald's, yeah, you run the risk of, obviously you're not going to be making the McDonald's built-in franchise income, but you're also going to kind of have dare I say, the reward of having your own business, maybe a little bit more rewarding, a little bit more interaction. And it's just you. Like I always thought about like a mom and pop, like hardware store would just be kind of fun, like in small town Montana, not in Los Angeles or anything, but mm-hmm. I look at it that way, and it allows you still to maintain that. I mean, sometimes it might be a true intimate connection with your customers. And I think indie films allow that because you don't get lost in the sauce. And I think, God bless any big movie star or whatever, they get so big, they kind of forget their customer. Like, I'm not knocking them negatively, but I think indie films and indie business or small businesses, they are fueled purely by want. And because that want is driven by need, like you are doing it because you want to, and you need to, because you need to do this to eat. So there's more passion to it than just eye rolling, annoying, sign the franchise paycheck, and that's where obviously it's a slippery slope. If you become a franchise, you get too big for your britches and all that crap, is you kind of forget, dare I use the old term, where you came from. And that's my mantra when it comes to this, and treating it like a business is these people, like I have a joke, and I'm not exaggerating. If and when Reacher happens, I actually have they've created a fan club on Facebook. It's called the Bosley for Reacher private page. And they have a group, and they're intense. There's moderators, the whole 9 yards. And I can go to the member group list and see all like 500 names. And if I don't pay for it, or if Amazon doesn't pay for it, I'll find a way to pay for it. All those people deserve to come to the opening because they've been there. They're the original customers of my small mom and pop hardware store, and yeah, I love that you think of it that way, because I try to do that, because as artsy fartsy as it gets, it's still a product. Right. I look at my dad, he's a doctor, he's an amazing physician, and I value doctors that do doctors that borders and volunteer and all that, but nobody went into business unless they're privately, independently wealthy to volunteer. I volunteer left and right, don't get me wrong, but yeah, we live in a world where you sell a product to make money to put food on your table. And anybody that thinks it's otherwise is either independently wealthy or a moron. You know, I don't care if you're painting or acting or selling tools, you're selling something.
Mm-hmm.
No, I love that. And you actually, I find it interesting because if the fans are your client, but they don't hire you.
Yeah, amen.
That's a weird dynamic there in a business sense. I mean, because, you know, my niche.
Some poorly aligned incentives,
Yeah.
Dad.
Yeah. What was that, Cam? Say it again.
I said that's some poorly aligned incentives.
Yeah, it's very true. Yeah. It's a sick and twisted and that therein lies where the metaphor dies. Is I can have all these Bosley for Reacher fans, but because of that, at the end of the day, money makes the difference. The people, and I use the rock respectfully, put a rock in a movie, it could suck. I mean, let's even use the Jack Reacher things. I truly, and I'm just being polite, Tom Cruise is doing what he wants. I mean, how can I fault the guy? He gets to walk away from explosions in slow motion and do shit we did and less damage to his body and get paid $1 bajillion to do it.
Mm-hmm.
He's a kid playing pretend for a lot of money. So you throw him in anything and it'll make money for those people that made those decisions, the producers and all that, you know, so everybody's like happy with that. I mean, what business wouldn't want guaranteed income? Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, so I see that, but it's weird. Like you said, that the producers that make the decisions to hire the business, me, aren't the ones, they're the ones that they're not the fan. Mm-hmm. Producer A could hate Jeff Bosley, but if Jeff Bosley makes producer A money, great. But my fan, the customer, might hate me, you know, and that's the misery of it. That's where the black and white metaphor dies and eats at my soul to like deep, dark levels of toxicity. Because
it does, because I'm going, all right, man, what's my marketing plan? How are we doing this? I got to shift. It's like, wait a second, crap.
Yeah.
My marketing plan is to my clients, but my clients don't write my check. They're not.
Yeah. And I trust me, coming from a very black and white, very meticulous, power or very micromanaging black and white world. And I say this all the time, but I beat it to death. But all of us, one way or another, come from, and I maybe generically might say the arts might be the exception, but we all come from a world of you put in 100% work, you become this. And I always just kind of militantly go back to the Green Beret world. Happy thoughts and treating people nice and all that artistic crap didn't give me the Green Beret. You know, like I didn't ask the universe to, you know, if the universe wants this and Oprah says so, I'll become a Green Beret. Hard work equaled this. My dad went to medical school. He became a doctor. I come to Hollywood, put 100% in for 20 years. I might be in a Volkswagen commercial at the most, you know, and it's soul sucking for guys like us. Like it's, and that's where I value my people that are either my friends that are a little bit more either ignorant or a little bit more in touch with like the happy thoughts and a little bit more optimistic, you know, because they can go with those ebb and flows where, like you said, you're looking at your marketing plan, you're looking at strategy, black and white graphs, income, returns, investments, and they're just like, nah. just like
that goes right back to the entrepreneurial side of things, though, because when you're looking at it from an entrepreneur, you can have all these great business plans, you can write out an amazing business plan. It's not always going to come together, and I think that's kind of where you're falling into on that. Is you can have this niche, you can have, you know, fans and all this kind of stuff, but it's not always going to reap those kind of rewards. You know, you can put hours and hours and hours in as an entrepreneur, just like you could as an actor, and you know, wind up not even making any money with your business, let alone making it to the Volkswagen commercial. You know, that might be the high mark there.
And that's the thing is, and I always say that not even in Hollywood acting goofiness, like just anybody that opens up a small business. Meanwhile, you know, I'm sure in the last week, unless you guys have a stance I'm unaware of, in the last week, I'm sure one of us ordered from Amazon a product that a mom and pop shop probably sells down the street. Especially COVID, I'm sure, is just wrecking Amazon or loving Amazon right now. But like, it's ironic. Those are the very things where I say to people, like, the little experience I have in small business, I'm in awe of people willing to put their life, especially vets. A lot of vets do it maybe because they have retirement, a little bit of risk, you know, a little bit of a nest, dare I say. But a lot of vets go into, you know, consulting or weapons, etc. And my gut just sinks if they're doing it like to survive on, because there's so much fear Like, it just terrifies me to open up a small business or to be an entrepreneur versus like, do you go work for a tire store that's guaranteed income, versus, it's just, yeah, it's terrifying. I know I'm preaching to the choir.
I'll jump in on that transition thing. Cause I mean, that was me. I was, when I retired 11 years ago, I was like, man, I gotta get a job. And I've got to work for somebody. And I spent 7 years doing that, trying to figure that out. And finally came to the realization, I really don't have to work for somebody. I can work for myself and do what I want to do.
Yeah.
Not, and of course, assume all the risk of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, man, I think back sometimes and, cause I do a lot of volunteer work with active duty guys, getting out, I was going to say retiring, but, transitioning out and helping them transition and find their next adventure stuff with, and I'll put a plug in for the Commit Foundation and the Honor Foundation, because they're great groups and I love working with them. But that didn't exist when I retired. And I just think back, man, how different. I mean, you don't want to change anything about where you are today.
Yeah.
You got here that way, but how different things would be if that's where I had started 11 years ago, and had somebody to kind of say, hey, have you looked at this? Well, you really like doing these sort of things.
Yeah.
Maybe this is what you need to look at, as opposed to, I'll go work for Lockheed Martin.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's the thing. And I look at my modern day struggles or whatever, transitioning, and I luckily had a little bit of college. So like the resume writing and all that, the forced transition classes we had to take it was luckily for me, okay. But I still went through the holy hell moments. I luckily, like almost like I always say it's like a Ferris Bueller's Day Off shenanigans, because while I was transitioning out, I was also going to the fire academy in Colorado Springs. So I was like, got to go to lunch. And I spent the day at the fire academy in classes, so I luckily had zero transition time from a traditional, from the SF world to civilian work. But that was insanely full of struggle. And then I try to go, holy shit, what about, if this is how I feel and I think I have a lot of luck tools, let's go to the swing for the fences. How did like Vietnam vets feel? Like they were just like, you're out, good luck. And I was like, if I'm experiencing a microcosm of what they went through, I'm sure I can times it by 100, and that doesn't do it justice. Or not knocking Bravos, but like Bravos, they are really good at their job. They're gun cavemen, and unless they go into law enforcement or some sort of weapons training world, I look at some of my Bravos are my best friends, and I can just see them going, oh, what the format? I don't even know how to open up a Word document, let alone create a resume. And I'm like, I was sick to my stomach all the time. How does poor Stan feel? It's just, it provides like this retroactive empathy, and it's gut wrenching. And I see, and I'm not to touch on your veteran causes, I see why there's so much like not literally lost, but also like this metaphorical loss of direction and purpose and all that, and I can see where that happens, and it's a slippery slope very quickly, I think.
Well, that leads to something I wanted to ask you too. So I'm glad we kind of.
It's like, I could see your notes, but I really couldn't.
You're good at it. You've been doing this for a while now.
Yeah, you're a dang pro.
Yeah, you were acting, then you went in the military, then you became a firefighter, now you're back to acting. So, what was that? Was there like that little voice inside your head so that I know I can, let me give this one more shot, or what,
I think
full circle sort of thing.
Yeah. Even hearing it out loud again every time, it still makes me sick. Like, what was I smoking that day? And I don't do anything cool like that, but like, what did somebody put in my drink that made me drop my guard long enough to do something so inherently stupid? I mean, really. But like, I was raised by a doctor, very practical. He's like a Nebraska dirt farmer kid. So like, you went to college, you got a degree, you got that job, and white picket fence, grill, 2.5 kids die, And I didn't know, he wasn't like, to his credit, he wasn't like a lot of his generation or his brother's older generation. Like, you will be a doctor, you will be a lawyer, you will be a successful X. But there was like this passive undertone of what I saw was acceptable and normal. I was like, that makes sense to me, is he did this and this, and we have a house and we're taken care of because of what he did. So I beat college to death, and I hated college. And then And now I look at the Delta school and I'm like, now college was a joke. I'm like, wow, I could have actually had 3 degrees. And then finally, for me, the circle started, as cliche as it is, with 9/11. And then I held fast for a bit, because at that point I was a little bit older, and I'll blatantly admit it was more of like a fear-based resistance, because I'd kind of been an adult and I've been out of the military mind frame for so long that I was like holy shit, going into basic in my late 20s. No, that's not for me. And I held off so then that's when I went to theater and I started doing the theater stuff, but I was still going to sports medicine. Like, that was my major. It was like, that was my practical real world job, and held out for 2 years. And finally I was like, I'm going to regret this for the rest of my life, as cheesy as that is. And then, I went the SF route, and lucky made it, and did it, survived it, got broke. Because I joined older, I that's kind of a regret of mine, but I didn't have a 20-year career in me. I'd still be in now, and I'd have to probably finish at 60, 50 maybe. And I mean, so I did that. And then the firefighting thing was I could not embrace that practical job, that you need insurance and healthcare and a guaranteed paycheck, and the older I got, the more I got used to that, and the more it sickened me to deviate from that chaos. And then the short version, as short as I can.
Crap. Did we just lose? Uh-oh.
You and your dog and a divorce. What do you got to lose? I know you want this impractical Hollywood crap. Go for it. And the no joke, he's tattooed in my arm. I have a couple initials here, like, why do I do what I do, or why have I done what I've done? And there's initials of various people, and there's a JC on there, and everybody assumes it's Jesus Christ. And it's actually, admittedly, Jim Carrey. And because hold on, bear with me.
Okay. I'm letting you run the story out.
Yeah. There was a commencement speech that floated around at this point, maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago. And it was right during that sweet spot where she had made a comment. I was kind of like, God, do I risk it all? It's just me and my dog. What do I got to lose? But I like income and reliability. And the commencement speech floated through, probably on Facebook at that point. And there was just one line where he said his father gave him this advice of, don't live a life of fear disguised as practicality. And I was, maybe I'd had a jack in me at that point. I don't know. But I was like, that just hit me. And I was like, that's all it is fear. I mean, fear keeps people, I think, not overall, but like fear would have kept me from trying out for SF. It is fear, and I was like, God, and that tapped into that Marty McFly syndrome of like, what are you, yellow? So right hand to God, the next day I went into the fire department, got in my dress blues and cut my hair and the whole 9 yards, and met with my captain and turned it. Like, they literally, I thought it was a movie thing. They literally made me turn in my badge. It's like, really? Yeah. Like they like the badge that went with my dress blues. It wasn't like, give me your badge, Bosley. But they were like, all right, thank you. They were cool. And I resigned and put in like essentially my firefighter version of 2 weeks. And they took my badge, and so I walked out. My blues were all naked. And then at that point, I went the SF mentality of all or none. Like, I do everything in 11. Sold, gave away, or donated, or threw away everything I owned that wouldn't fit in my Chrysler 300. Swung for the fences. And that Green Beret I mentioned, he kind of hooked me up with a movie with Uma Thurman, and luckily got a little bit, but and then the SF survival mentality got me to survive. Like, I always use it's now a hashtag, sadly, but I always call it Hollywood sear. I didn't do well, but I was willing to literally not eat sometimes, to do what I wanted to do at all costs. I didn't move to Hollywood to be, to all due respect, a personal trainer or a bartender. I was like, I'm going to move there to do this one thing. I didn't go into SF, to all due respect, I didn't go to SF to become 82nd, or, I was like, I had the mentality in SF, and it happened one time. I'm sure you probably saw it in times, where a guy who didn't make it most of the time went to 82nd Infantry, of course. Mm-hmm. And one of our team or classmates at that time, he got cut at some phase. I don't remember which one. Essentially was in 82nd within, a week basically. And within less than 6 months, he was deployed and dead. And obviously that's not the correlation literally, but it proved the potentiality of that black and white correlation for me. And so that's how I did it. And, you know, is that whole Viking burn your boats scenario. And to this day, just even retelling that story, I don't know what the hell I was thinking. You know, I don't regret it, but that, like you said, that full circle, it's nonsensical. There's no connected dots as far as the mentality I took from military is the only thing sustaining me here. I think like it truly, truly is.
So one thing I picked up on this, and I think it's kind of culminating from some of the other folks we've talked to, is a little bit of an irony when we talk about coming from the military, especially special forces, and then, you know, being risk averse of getting into the entrepreneurial world. Yeah. And I'm thinking like you were a little scared of the risk, and you were a firefighter. Like that just like, I'm just having trouble squaring those two about, because you're talking about doing two, you know, I'll throw it out there, two of the probably more dangerous jobs in the world. And you know what? It's like, oh, but do I want the risk of not having healthcare? So how do you square those two? I think that's a little bit ironic.
I think I've always been the same way. I think a lot of my SF brothers are kind of the same in that I always joked throughout my entire life. You know, I would say this all during college, is like, I would rather do push-ups for a paycheck, and I suck at push-ups, or get punched in the face for a paycheck, than go through some grandiose long process. You know, I'm just like, let's just muscle this through, slam my face in the door, and call it a day. So yeah, that's the physical risk. But if it comes with some sort of guaranteed outcome, you know, that was the whole Q course for me, is as long as you survived, didn't quit, showed them you had what it took, you were, there's a joke probably in here somewhere, you were guaranteed a Green Beret. I use that loosely. Yeah. But there was very black and white. So it was risk adverse, but there was still an element of the fate was in my control. So firefighting, it was risk, and it sucked. And I mean, like I said, I'm 6.5 feet tall, 250, and I was in I did a lot of enclosed space rescues. Like that's ridiculous. It makes no sense. So it was risk adverse in that sense, but it's still every 2 weeks that paycheck from the city came in, you know, and I think some people just have different brains, you know, like for people, like a lot of people would find risk of doing what you hate more scary and risky than a paycheck, you know, and it's definitely, I'm my own worst dichotomous enemy. Like daily, these are the two brains, the very questions you're asking are the two brains always fighting each other, you know, because I'm a very black and white military existence, but I'm also in this, you have zero control or say in your existence career. And I don't know which one's going to win in 20 years. I'll get back to you.
One of the things I think, you know, in that same sense is you have in the military, you have a process, you know, the risk, you know, outside the process exists. And those are two separate things in your mind. I'm sure it's the same thing in firefighting. You have this process, you know, you go through training, you do this, you do this, you do this, and then you implement. And you keep those two things straight. And when you go into business for yourself, you no longer have a process, or really when you step away from the military or even a structured organization like firefighters, you no longer have a process. It's free will. And I think what I've seen with all the now vets that I've coached over the last several years is that that's the biggest fear, and the biggest shift in mindset is, I know that if I stayed in the Army, I could, and I do these things right, and, you know, I don't get a DUI or whatever, you know, I get promoted and I move up the chain. And at some point, you know, 20 years, 30 years, I'm done and I shift, right? It's very established plan.
I mean, there's literally charts for it in the military. I mean,
But once you step out, like what you're doing, you know, it doesn't exist. And it throws me into the thought process. So how do you plan, you know, because you're a business. How do you, what's your business plan for growth?
It's brilliant. The way I look at it, and it's taken me a long time, is the 18-year-old unexperienced me would be crying, sucking on my thumb, because I would have no concept of implementing any business plan, let alone a mission statement or anything like that. But I got to the point now where I'm applying what you were saying, like the whole military A plus B equals C scenario. But I'm learning now in the small business world of applying that where, like, this is the little bit of like hippie I'm trying to embrace applying that to the stuff I actually have control over. We come from a world that A plus B equals C military life creates a, I don't want to say a false sense of security, but it creates a, outside of the military, a false sense of security. You know, like it's not all applicable. So I came out here with this all applicable mentality. If I do these exact things relentlessly to the death, I will get this. And it's taken me for 5 or 6 years to get that business plan where I can apply to what in my micromanaging mentality that I'm sure we all have in a way, pick, for lack of better terms, pick those battles. Like I know if I put every sense of my being into work ethic, schools, talent, or you know, or skills, or embracing and showing up and all that crap that physically or mentally I can control, I can put my head on my pillow at night and sleep knowing that I applied my business plans to things I can control. It's the other billion things that I can't control that, yeah, don't get me wrong, I'm not being too altruistic here. I still lose sleep on, it still toxifies me, still makes me mad, still makes me sad. But those billion things, I've at least identified those things that don't apply to my business plan to not let them keep me from staying the course. You know, like a classic joke I use, and it's 1000% true, is I met a casting director. They're essentially the coach that allows you to try out for the team and then lets you on the team. That's essentially what a casting director is. And then, so they let you in, they're like the gatekeepers of your career. This woman keeps bringing me in for this TV show. And what's the show? It's called Jane the Virgin. It's a highly Spanish cast. I don't even know. I think she's just being nice and throwing me a bone, but I don't exude Spanish at all.
I was going to say, I've watched that one with my fiance and I don't see you in it.
Yeah. No, I'm not offended. Again, I'm not offended. But she brings me in all the time for roles that are a little bit more me, and I never book it. But the fact, it's almost, again, I always go back to sports. The fact the coach keeps letting you try out, you know, I'm not Rudy where I'm a little special in the head, but at least, maybe I'm not, but they at least, like, you coming back shows that they give a crap. You know, they're like, keep trying. You have to, there's just, those stars got to align and all that crap. But she one day was telling me where she had to, like, she's staring at one person every 5 minutes for an 8, 9, 10, 11, 12-hour day, thinking they're doing something new and creative, when in reality, they're doing the exact same thing the guy before them did. So don't get me wrong. That's like, I mean, that'd be like going to a promotions board and people trying to think they have unique answers and just saying something like, I don't know the answer, but I can get back, you know, like that bull crap. Hearing that for 12 hours, you want to swallow a bullet. But she told me a great anecdote where she was watching auditions all day and she's like, I had to go to the bathroom so bad. I just tuned out almost all of them until lunch break. And I was like, I mean, the human condition, that coach, that casting director is in charge of opening that door to a potential career changing job. And I was like, holy shit. How many times have we had to go to the bathroom or go where we lost sight of anything and could care less about anything that mattered? And then that story to this day is the thing that makes me go, oh, there's so many things I have no control over. And if I show up that day, I busted my ass, I stayed awake, I did my job in my business plan, my conscience is clear if she had to pee real bad that she didn't even notice my audition. You know, and then we've became friends over the years, and she's like, you know, there's casting directors, if you remind them of their ex, they might subconsciously go, not that guy, it's too much like my ex. Or the military thing, I mean, a little inside thing, like, it's California, it's Hollywood, it's not Fort Bragg.
Right.
They just see military, like, I'll actually have 2 different resumes that pimp out the military stuff and also don't pimp it out, because I know my audience sometimes, right, wrong, or indifferent, it's a pretty highly political statement, but I can get prejudged the minute they're like, you know, a lot of people don't know what Green Beret is here, but they'll be like, they'll see special forces, or they'll see military, or they'll see infantry school. Jeff is done. Jeff doesn't even get the tryout for the team. You know, they're like, don't even come to the field. So that business plan, applying that business plan that applies to entrepreneurship or traditional businesses, the thing that keeps me alive, metaphorically, I'm fortunate, is that I apply it to the shit I can actually control. And that's way easier said than done. You know, that's like saying, you know, for your business, like, oh, if customers don't show, just let it go. You still are going to sit there and evaluate. I'm like, what am I doing wrong with my advertising campaign? What's my marketing? What am I doing wrong? What can I fix? And you can still feel good at night, put your head on your pillow and say, I did everything I can. If the customers don't come, you're still going to eat away yourself. It's the nature of hardworking people to do that.
Well, I got to ask one acting question. What's more fun? Action, romance, drama, comedy? I mean, if it was like, hey man, this is what I want to do, which one would it be?
It'd be a tie. It's not romance, because that stuff's just gross and awkward. It's highly awkward.
I can't even imagine.
No, yeah, like my anecdote is the Green Beret. So you'll appreciate this. The Green Beret who got me kind of transitioning into Hollywood. He got me my first job. They needed so cocky sounding, but remember, I'm talking about my product, not Jeff Bosley.
Yep.
They needed a tall, good-looking dude that could play opposite of Uma Thurman, and she's taller. And that's like a weird little nuance to like getting your business in here, is just even height can screw you, So if she's short and you're tall, they're gonna be like, hire the person that looks the same. But they needed a tall, good-looking dude that could take a beating, because in a beating in Hollywood, I had to fall. That was the stunt was falling to the ground. And I was like, what? I got paid to do that in the past, So like that's all relative, obviously. Yeah. So he called me and he basically goes, hey, they need a good-looking dude. And he goes, he's a Bravo. So we're like, it's weird that we're such close friends, but we're Bravo and Delta, and it's oil and water. Yeah. It's like, we need some good-looking dude. Apparently, people tell me you're good-looking, that can take a punch and also kiss Uma Thurman. I was like, I can do all of that. Tell me where, and I'll be there. And he got me the job. And this is a long answer to your question. He got me the job, and I had to have this weird bed scene with Uma Thurman and this woman that's floating around on my Instagram. And it was awkward as shit, because I mean, I'm there in my underwear. It's Uma Thurman. Her name's Maggie Q. They're both gorgeous women. Like, they're gorgeous. They weren't divas. They weren't a-holes like I had heard Hollywood could be. This was one of my earlier jobs. But I guess you could call that romantic. And it was horrible. Like, I just got to New York. I walk in there, like, put this suit on, comb your hair. That's Uma Thurman right there. Go get in her grill and act like you're about to kiss. Here's your lines. I was sweating. I was terrified. It's New York. I'm miserable in the heat. I'm trying not to look like I have malaria because I'm sweating so bad. Horrible. Not fun at all. So with that being said, not romance. Comedy is fun just because, I don't know about you guys, but like, you can have the worst day ever. And if you can just have a good belly busting laugh, like we had them in the team room, in the fire department, at the kitchen table, like the laughs that just hurt, like they physically exhaust you. That only happens with laughter, like obviously you can have the dopamine dump of a firefight, but that's a short life to live. So comedy's fun in that sense. But I don't get it. Comedy rolls because of the way I look. I don't look on paper, unless I'm goofing around and being jovial like this, just on paper, making my stoic, like, did I leave the oven on face headshots? They just assume that guy's boring and stoic and he's military. He probably has no personality. So I don't get him a lot. So really it boils down to action, because I'm a kid at heart. I mean, we got paid to blow stuff up and walk away in slow motion, basically. Like, I don't know about you, but like,
those were the best days.
Yeah, exactly. Like I have a video of one of these buildings we blew up, and you literally hear me off camera going, I can't believe this is my job. Like, it was just, I lost my composure for a minute, and I was like, this is the best thing ever. So, I mean, that's where I look at like Tom Cruise and all that. Like, the dude's just doing what he loves, man, blowing stuff up and doing action. And I think action drama's fun just because like that taps into my artsy fartsy stuff. But yeah, the action stuff is ultimately like, those are the biggest kicks in the ass. If you can do that Tom Cruise level stuff, if it's Hollywood action where they're like, can you fall when Uma Thurman slaps you? That's not an action movie. Long answer, but yeah. Yeah,
that's a whole other level. Yeah, Uma Thurman slaps me and I fall down. That's action.
Oh yeah. Don't get me wrong. Yeah, like I was like, wait a minute. I have essentially it's an implied threesome. Like, it's the morning after video. So I'm in my underwear. It wasn't pornographic or anything, but I'm like, that in the same video shot is me, Uma Thurman, and Maggie Q. Kill me now. Let's just end on a high note. And that was sad. I started on a high note, and it's just been downhill ever. And then I played Navy SEALs. So how the mighty have fallen.
Jeff, man, this has been a lot of fun. Appreciate your time.
You're long-winded in the mornings.
We're hitting that belly laugh, the team room belly laugh.
Yeah. Self-deprecation is a powerful fuel.
It is. But yeah, it's been fun, been educational for me.
Yeah.
And, I'm going to let Camden go first, because like we said, in the green room, Camden had surgery this week. So you notice he was a little quiet during the show today.
I was going to say, if you went first, Dad, and you said the same thing as me, I probably would miss it. I would just repeated it word for word. Doesn't even matter.
Awesome. I do love it. That's awesome.
Well, I'll take the low hanging fruit. I loved what you were saying a lot, Jeff, about how when you have limited control, when you're living a life like yours where you can't focus on what you can control, or sorry, not that you can't see. Wow. See, I'm screwing myself over. This is why I wasn't talking that much. But when there's so many things that are outside of your control, that you have to be able to plan on the things that you can control. And I think that's a really good lesson. One of those things we've talked about, but I think it hasn't been said that type of language before. I think that makes so much sense. That apply that business planning to the things that are inside your control instead of things that are outside of it. I was sitting here thinking, okay, Jeff, so, if you're 1 for 10 on successful auditions, then you book yourself for 20 auditions and you can get 2 successful. It's so easy when you think about it that way, but in reality, it's completely outside of your control.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and I'm going to bastard. I was just actually talking to my girlfriend about it, like the whole best laid plans go to shit when the first bullet flies by your head. Mm-hmm. I don't care if you're in the military or that's true. And I was telling her, like, it obviously it applies to literally a firefight, leaving the wire XYZ. But if you really think about it, any job, any business, I always use my dad as an example. If he knows how to do surgery and emergency surgery in a controlled schooling environment, if he didn't have that, when all the shit hits the fan, he wouldn't have that that foundation. Mm-hmm. And like, that's the thing when it comes to that decision-making process is just really boiling it down to that foundation of a solid, realistic foundation. Because without a foundation, then you're just flapping in the wind and you're not going to do anything.
Oh yeah.
Jeff,
Dad, how about you? What? Oh, I was going to give it to you first. Let Jeff go then. We can let Jeff go.
What?
What'd you learn?
I didn't hear you ask that, and I was like, "What? Go first? Where?" What did I learn? I learned the entrepreneurial mindset or small business mindset can actually, if looked at correctly, can pretty much be applied to anything. If it can be applied to art and acting and painting, for all I know, that mindset can be applied to not the traditional, like, you don't have to go to the Small Business Administration to get a loan to start a shoe store. That mentality, if applied right, can actually apply to any, it can apply to going to college, let alone, a product and a consumer product seller relationship. So it wasn't until that I learned that what I'm doing is working, because you validated it without me having said Jeff Bosley is a product and the fans are consumers. So that's what I learned, is it's universally applicable.
Probably helps you step out of that ego a little bit too, huh?
Oh, for sure. I'm an arrogant SOB.
Just you just use the excuse of I'm marketing.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, marketing. I'm a good looking dude. I'm talking purely marketing.
There you go.
No, God, no.
Mine is right in that line. It's the whole, who your client is, and the fact that your fans are your client. Yeah. But it really puts that dichotomy into your fans are your client, but they really don't write the check. Yeah. I mean, they validate the product.
Yeah,
they don't write the check, and that's an interesting business dilemma to be in, because you've got to sell. I mean, literally, you have to sell the product to the person that writes the check.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's no longer a business.
Yeah, that person might not give a crap about the product, ironically. They care about the check.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
another podcast.
It just makes it difficult, and I can,
I think the analogy we went through.
Stumbling on it because I always go to the solution set, and I'm like, fix that problem this way, do X, Y, Z, and I'm like, I may have to call you tomorrow and let you know.
Well, I was going to say the more brutal answer is cut the middleman out. Just, and in our background, that could, I'm not about to go to some producer at a Skydance and off them. So I got to figure out the polite way to eliminate the middleman.
Well, and nor are you going to go out on the sidewalk and start doing, impromptu acting on the sidewalk.
Exactly.
That's what I was going to say. Jeff, if you really want the really accurate stuff for your niche market, just go on YouTube, man. It's free. You just post all your videos up there. You can hit your market. It'll be great. No one will be complaining about the accuracy.
Well, that goes back to a lot of things, like, without getting on too much of a tangent, with any of our businesses, is the sad state of affairs of the diluted market because of, in this case, your example, YouTube or whatever. It's awesome, but it also dilutes, like podcasts are, I think, an amazing example.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just go to the extreme of Joe Rogan. I think he just went to Spotify, so now that might not apply, but I mean, he's been free forever, but he's obviously made $1 bajillion off of a free product. Podcasts are like the last vestige of free product. And I remember when I did it for a while, but I felt bad, but I had a paid podcast, and it actually helped pay my rent for a hot minute, but I couldn't continue with the schedule. So I made it free again. But I remember, like, when a lot of people started charging for podcasts, people lost their shit because they're like, well, everybody else does it for free. And those people now ruined it. I mean, you guys spent an hour on this. You're going to have to edit it, upload it. It's still a freaking business. But because of all the YouTube kids diluting your market, that's now the odd standard. It'd be like if my dad became a doctor and all these other doctors were free. They're like, well, Dr. Bosley, you're a piece of crap for wanting to get paid for your job, for your service, and that's another soapbox.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, and there's as Camden likes to throw out there, that would drive us to the Joe Rogan, that would make this a JR. If we went down that road, we'd get another hour or two.
Yeah. I mean, we didn't have a 10-minute advertisement for Yeti coolers before we did this. So let's be honest.
Yeah. Well, Jeff, how can people get in touch with you? Support the Bosley for Reacher.
Yeah. Like I said, my mantra is fans are customers. So I truly actually try to interact. Dropping that fact that the interaction doesn't give me a paycheck, but they're still a customer. I don't give a crap about the studio. But pretty much anywhere I've owned and occupied the potentially pompous hashtag or username, the Jeff Bosley. Sorry. I saw Hugh Jackman did it, and I was like,
just marketing. It's just marketing.
Well, honestly, in my defense, you look at people you want to emulate. Why reinvent the wheel? So I was like, well, Hugh Jackman, it says the Hugh Jackman. I'm sure he has $1 bajillion in his marketing team, so it works for him. And this sure as shit, one of my friends, a Marine mom, so you can appreciate the humor here. Her little daughter sends me a video and goes, I love how he calls himself the Jeff Bosley. Like, everybody wants to be me. I was like, oh, great. A 6-year-old is already mocking me. But I'd already committed to the marketing. So you can get a hold of me on any platform, the Jeff Bosley. And I'm highly interactive. The Bosley for Reacher campaign is hashtag Bosley for Reacher. And you'll see it's highly annoying, and it's the Google results are not, like, I went on a date and I had to apologize ahead of time because we all Google stalk each other. And I had to tell her after the fact, I'm like, when you do what I know you're going to do, because I'm going to do it, I apologize. I was like, you're going to see a lot of skin and abs and shenanigans. I was like, that's not me. That's my product. So, but yeah, anywhere and everywhere is the Jeff Bosley. I'm on pretty much all the platforms except the gamer ones, like Stitcher or whatever. And what's the thing the DOD just shut down? Twitter, the short TikTok. I'm not on that. Yeah. I have an account, but I'm not on it. But yeah, so anywhere and everywhere, and I do everything I can to interact. So it's the long.
Great, man. Well, hey, thanks again for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
A lot of fun.
Too much coffee.
Yeah, well, some good throwbacks to the good old days too.
Oh, so. God, amen. Oh, yeah. I miss them. I need them. Trust me, they're my fuel to not take out people out front when I go to take the trash out.
Awesome. Well, hey, Kim, run us out, man.
All right. Thank you all again for listening to today's show. Special thanks to Jeff Bosley, the Jeff Bosley, for joining us today. And our sponsors, MASH, Military and Athletic Strength Hemp Oil, and Verbi Virtual Events. You can check out recent episodes of the Cam Otis Show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. And check out a full archive at thecamonotishow.buzzsprout.com. Cam Otis Show is on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thanks again, and we'll see y'all next week.